Rain hammered the courthouse steps. Elena Vale watched her ex-husband drive away with the housemaid she'd trusted. 6 months ago, she hired Lydia while working brutal overnight shifts at the hospital. Now Lydia wore Elena's favorite coat, sitting beside the man who promised forever. By sunset, Elena had lost everything: her marriage, her savings, her nursing contract. When she slipped in a puddle, scattering divorce papers across the dirty sidewalk, a shadow appeared. A man in a charcoal suit crouched beside her, gathering the ruined papers with gloved hands. Behind him, a black Mercedes and armed bodyguards. Matteo De Luca, the most feared mafia boss in the city. He wrapped her bleeding hand with a monogrammed handkerchief and said quietly, "Any man who betrayed you is a fool." That moment changed everything. Drop a like and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Let's go. The rain didn't let up. It pounded the courthouse steps like it had something personal against Elena Vale, like the sky itself wanted to drown whatever dignity she had left. She stood there, 32 years old, soaked through her thrift store blazer, watching Derek's silver sedan pull away from the curb. Lydia sat in the passenger seat. Lydia, who Elena had hired 8 months ago when the overnight shifts at County General started bleeding into her marriage. Lydia, who smiled at Elena every morning while pouring coffee and asking how her night went. Lydia, who was now wearing Elena's favorite camel coat, the one Derek bought her for their 5th anniversary, and laughing at something Derek said as they drove toward whatever future they'd carved out of Elena's bones. Elena's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her bank. Insufficient funds. Overdraft protection disabled. She stared at the screen until the words blurred. Derek had cleaned out their joint account 3 days before the divorce finalized. Her lawyer said it was technically legal since both names were on it. Technically legal. Like that made it hurt less. She stuffed the phone back into her pocket and looked down at the envelope in her hands. Divorce decree. Final and binding. 6 years of marriage dissolved into 14 pages of legal jargon. The judge had been bored. The whole hearing took 11 minutes. Derek didn't even look at her when the gavel came down. The wind picked up, tearing at the corners of the envelope. Elena tried to hold it steady, but her fingers were numb. Cold rain mixed with something hotter on her cheeks, and she realized she was crying. Not the loud kind, just the slow leak of someone who'd run out of ways to hold it together. She turned to head down the courthouse steps. Her foot hit something slick, moss or oil or just bad luck, and suddenly the world tilted. She went down hard, one knee cracking against the concrete, palms scraping stone as the envelope flew from her hands. Papers exploded across the wet steps like shrapnel. Divorce decree. Hospital termination notice. Overdue credit card bills. Medical collection letters. The whole humiliating inventory of her life, scattered for anyone to see. For a moment, Elena just stayed there on her hands and knees, staring at the dirty water pooling around her. She thought about staying down, just curling up right there on the courthouse steps and letting the rain wash her into the gutter with the rest of the trash. Then a shadow fell over her. A man crouched beside her, close enough that she could see the stitching on his leather gloves. He didn't say anything, just started gathering the papers, one by one, methodical and careful like he did this sort of thing every day. Elena looked up. He was older, mid-40s maybe. Dark hair going silver at the temples. A face that looked carved from something harder than bone. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, a mouth that didn't smile. And a scar. Thin and pale, slicing through his left eyebrow like someone had tried to split his face open once and only halfway succeeded. His suit was charcoal gray, tailored so perfectly it might as well have been armor. No tie. White shirt open at the collar. A watch on his wrist that probably cost more than Elena's nursing degree. Behind him, a black Mercedes idled at the curb. 2 men stood beside it, both wearing dark suits and the kind of stillness that said they were armed. They watched the street like wolves watching a forest. One of them had his hand inside his jacket. The man in the charcoal suit finished gathering Elena's papers. He stacked them neatly, tapping the edges against his thigh to straighten them, then held the stack out to her. His eyes were dark. Not brown. Black. The kind of black that didn't reflect light. "Any man who betrayed you is a fool," he said. His voice was low, calm. But there was something underneath it, something that made Elena's pulse kick. Not fear, something else. Something she didn't have a name for. She took the papers. Her hands were shaking. Blood ran down her right palm where she'd scraped it against the concrete. The man noticed. He reached into his jacket. Elena flinched and pulled out a white handkerchief, monogrammed MDL. He took her hand, turned it palm up, and wrapped the handkerchief around the cut. His touch was careful, clinical, like he'd done this before. "You're bleeding," he said. "I'm fine." "You're not." Elena tried to pull her hand back, but he held on. Not hard, just firm enough to make it clear he wasn't done yet. He tied the handkerchief with a neat knot, then released her. The fabric was soft, expensive, already soaking through with her blood. "Thank you," Elena said. Her voice came out hoarse. The man stood, offered his hand. Elena stared at it for a second, then took it. He pulled her to her feet with surprising gentleness, steadying her when she wobbled. Up close, he smelled like rain and something darker, leather and smoke and old wood. "You need a ride," he said. It wasn't a question. Elena shook her head. I'm fine. Really. She looked down at herself. Soaked blazer, torn stockings, bleeding hand wrapped in a stranger's handkerchief. She looked like someone who'd crawled out of a car accident. "I'll get a cab." "In this weather?" The man glanced at the rain. It was coming down harder now, turning the street into a river. "You'll be waiting an hour." "I've waited longer." Something flickered across his face, not quite a smile. More like recognition, like he understood exactly what she meant. He gestured toward the Mercedes. 5 minutes. I'll take you wherever you need to go. No strings." Elena should have said no, should have walked away, should have done a lot of things. But she was cold and wet and tired, and the idea of standing on this corner waiting for a cab that might never come made her want to lie back down on the steps and stay there. "Okay," she said. The man's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Satisfaction, maybe, or something hungrier. He turned and walked toward the car. Elena followed. One of the bodyguards opened the back door. The interior was black leather and dark wood, and the kind of silence that only came with money. Elena slid inside. The man slid in beside her. The door closed. The world outside disappeared. The driver pulled away from the curb without a word. Elena pressed herself against the far door, clutching her ruined papers against her chest. The man didn't look at her. He stared out the window, one hand resting on his knee, fingers drumming a slow rhythm against the leather. The scar through his eyebrow caught the passing streetlights. "Where to?" he asked. Elena opened her mouth, closed it. She didn't have an answer. The apartment she'd shared with Derek was gone. He'd kept it in the divorce. She couldn't afford a hotel. Her parents were dead. Her sister lived 3 states away. She had exactly 2 friends from nursing school, and both of them had families and problems of their own. "I don't know," she said finally. The man turned to look at her. Really, look at her. Not the way Derek used to look, like she was a problem he was trying to solve. Not the way the judge looked, like she was a case number. This man looked at her like he was reading a book written in a language only he understood. "When's the last time you ate?" he asked. Elena thought about it. Yesterday, maybe the day before. Time had gotten slippery. "I'm not hungry." "That's not what I asked." The driver turned left, heading deeper into the city. Elena watched the buildings slide past. Neon signs, wet pavement, people huddled under awnings. The rain kept falling. "What's your name?" the man asked. "Elena." "Elena." He repeated it like he was testing the weight. "I'm Matteo." She already knew. She didn't know how, but she knew. Matteo De Luca. The name whispered in hospital break rooms. The man who owned half the restaurants in the city. The man the cops couldn't touch. The man whose enemies disappeared and whose word was law in certain neighborhoods. Elena had heard the stories. Everyone had. She should have been terrified. She wasn't. "You know who I am," Matteo said. Not a question. "Yes." "And you got in the car anyway." Elena looked at him, at the scar, at the black eyes, at the hands that had wrapped her wound with a monogrammed handkerchief. "I didn't have anywhere else to go," she said. Matteo's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. The Mercedes pulled up in front of a building Elena recognized. The Belladonna Hotel. 20 stories of marble and glass and old money. Doormen in crisp uniforms. Valets who didn't blink at cars that cost more than houses. She'd walked past it 100 times on her way to work, always wondering what kind of people stayed in places like this. Now she was about to find out. Matteo opened his door. "Come on." "I can't." "You can." He stepped out into the rain. Elena sat there for a second, her brain finally catching up to what her body already knew. This was insane. She was getting out of a car with a man she didn't know, a dangerous man, a man who probably had bodies buried under his restaurants. But Derek was gone. Her job was gone. Her life was gone. And Matteo DeLuca was standing in the rain, waiting. Elena got out of the car. They walked through the lobby. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, soft music playing from somewhere invisible. People looked at Matteo and immediately looked away. The concierge nodded. A woman in a designer dress pressed herself against the elevator wall when they stepped inside. Matteo ignored all of it. He hit the button for the top floor. The doors closed. "You're taking me to your apartment," Elena said. "Penthouse." "What's the difference?" "About 40 floors." The elevator climbed. Elena's ears popped. She stared at her reflection in the polished doors. She looked like a drowned cat. Matteo looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. The contrast would have been funny if it wasn't so mortifying. The doors opened into a private foyer. Black marble. A single door. Matteo produced a key and unlocked it. The door swung open onto a space that made Elena's breath catch. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, rain streaming down the glass like 1,000 rivers. Furniture that looked more like art than something you sat on. Dark wood and darker leather. A kitchen with counters so clean they reflected the lights. Paintings on the walls that probably cost more than Elena would make in a lifetime. And silence. Deep, heavy silence that pressed against her ears. "Bathroom's through there," Matteo said, pointing. "There's clothes in the closet. Help yourself." Elena didn't move. "I'm not going to hurt you," Matteo said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. "If I wanted to hurt you, I would have left you on those steps." "Then what do you want?" Matteo looked at her, really looked at her. And for a second, Elena saw something raw behind those black eyes, something that looked almost like pain. "I don't know yet," he said. He walked past her, shrugging out of his jacket. Elena stood in the foyer, clutching her wet papers, trying to figure out if she'd just made the best or worst decision of her life. The bathroom was bigger than her old bedroom. White marble, gold fixtures, a shower with 6 different heads, towels so thick they felt like blankets. Elena locked the door, then checked it twice. She set the papers on the counter, peeled off her wet clothes, and stepped into the shower. The water was hot, almost too hot. She stood under it until her skin turned red, until the cold seeped out of her bones, until she couldn't tell the difference between water and tears anymore. When she finally stepped out, she found a robe hanging on the back of the door. White. Soft. She wrapped herself in it and opened the closet. Men's clothes. All of them. But there, in the back, a section of women's clothes. Dresses, jeans, sweaters, all in Elena's size, like they'd been waiting for her. Her stomach turned cold. She grabbed a pair of black jeans and a gray cashmere sweater and got dressed fast. When she came back out, Matteo was standing by the windows, holding 2 glasses of red wine. He'd taken off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. His forearms were scarred. Old burns, knife marks. The kind of souvenirs you didn't get from a normal life. He held out a glass. Elena took it, took a sip. The wine was better than anything she'd ever tasted, rich and dark and warm. "The clothes," she said. "Why do you have women's clothes?" "My sister stays here sometimes," Matteo said, "when she's in the city." "Your sister wears my size?" "Lucky guess." Elena didn't believe him, but she was too tired to push. She walked to the windows and looked out at the city. The rain had turned the lights into smears of color. Somewhere down there, Derek and Lydia were probably celebrating, probably drinking champagne and planning their future, probably laughing about the stupid nurse who never saw it coming. "He's marrying her tomorrow," Elena said. The words came out flat, empty. "Who?" "My ex-husband, Derek. He's marrying Lydia tomorrow afternoon, at Casa Nero." Matteo went very still. "Casa Nero? You know it?" "I own it." Elena turned. Mateo's face was unreadable, but his hand had tightened around his glass. "He's getting married at my restaurant," Mateo said slowly. "Tomorrow." Small world. Small city. Mateo took a long drink of wine. "You know what happened?" "What do you mean?" "Why he left you." Elena looked down at her wine. "He said I worked too much. Said I was never home. Said Lydia understood him in ways I didn't." She laughed. It came out bitter. "The funny thing is, I was working so much because he kept buying things we couldn't afford. New car, new furniture, vacations. I picked up every extra shift I could just to keep us above water. And while I was doing that, he was sleeping with the woman I hired to help me." Mateo didn't say anything for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, almost sad. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think he didn't deserve you." Elena's throat tightened. She took another drink to hide it. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." Mateo turned to face her fully. "I know you got up after being knocked down. I know you didn't fall apart when you had every right to. And I know you're standing in a stranger's apartment drinking wine instead of throwing yourself off a bridge. That tells me everything I need to know." Elena stared at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Being kind. Bringing me here. Acting like you give a damn about some random woman you found on the courthouse steps." Mateo was quiet for a long moment. Then he set down his glass and walked closer. Close enough that Elena could see the flecks of gray in his black eyes. Close enough that she could smell the rain still clinging to him. 8 years ago, he said, my wife left me. Took half my money and ran off with my second in command. Spent months feeding information to my enemies. Nearly got me killed. Definitely got 3 of my men killed. By the time I found her, she was living in Miami with my money and his blood on her hands. Elena's breath caught. "What did you do?" "What I had to." Mateo's jaw tightened. "And then I spent the next 8 years making sure I never trusted anyone again. Never got close. Never let anyone in. Because the moment you let someone in, they find the knife and they use it." "Then why am I here?" Mateo looked at her like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Because when I saw you on those steps, I saw myself. And I thought maybe you deserved better than what I got." The confession hung in the air between them. Elena felt something shift inside her chest. Something dangerous. Something she should have run from. "I should go," she said. "Where?" "I don't know, but I can't stay here." "Why not?" "Because you're dangerous. Because I don't know you. Because—" She stopped, shook her head. "Because I'm not the kind of person who shows up in strange men's apartments." "You weren't," Mateo said. "But maybe you are now." The words hit harder than they should have. Elena set down her glass before she dropped it. Her hands were shaking. "I need to leave," she said. "Okay." He didn't try to stop her, just walked to a table by the door and pulled out a card. Wrote something on the back, held it out. "My number," he said, "in case you change your mind." Elena took the card. It was heavy, expensive paper, embossed lettering, Matteo De Luca, no title, no company, just the name. "About tomorrow," Matteo said. "The wedding." "What about it?" "You could come." Elena stared at him. "Are you insane?" "Probably." Matteo's mouth curved, not quite a smile. "But think about it. You show up at Casa Nero tomorrow afternoon. Beautiful dress, perfect makeup, on the arm of the man who owns the place. Walk right past your ex-husband and his new bride like they're furniture. Show them exactly what they lost. That's cruel. That's justice." Elena's heart was pounding. "I can't." "You can." Matteo stepped closer. His voice dropped. "You've spent your whole life surviving, Elena, working yourself to death for people who didn't appreciate it, shrinking yourself down to fit into someone else's life. When's the last time you did something for yourself? When's the last time you felt powerful?" "I'm not powerful." "You could be." The words settled into Elena's bones like an infection. She looked at the card in her hand, at the man in front of her, at the choice he was offering. "I'll think about it," she said. "That's all I'm asking." Matteo walked her to the elevator, handed the valet some cash, told the driver to take Elena wherever she wanted to go. Elena got in the back of the Mercedes, still wearing borrowed clothes, still holding a business card that felt like a loaded gun. The driver looked at her in the rearview mirror. "Where to, ma'am?" Elena gave him the address of a motel near the hospital, the kind of place that charged by the hour and didn't ask questions. She watched the belladonna disappear behind them, watched the city lights blur past, watched the rain keep falling like it would never stop. When she got to the motel room, small, stale-smelling, with walls so thin she could hear the couple next door fighting, she sat on the bed and stared at Mateo's card. She should throw it away. She should forget this ever happened. She should call her sister and beg for a plane ticket and start over somewhere nobody knew her name. Instead, she turned the card over and looked at what Mateo had written on the back. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Casa Nero. I'll send a car." Elena lay back on the bed and closed her eyes. Pictured Derek's face when he saw her walk in. Pictured Lydia's smile cracking. Pictured herself standing beside Mateo De Luca like she belonged there. Like she was worth something. She fell asleep with the card pressed against her chest and woke up with her decision already made. At 1:30 the next afternoon, a black Mercedes pulled up outside the motel. Elena got in wearing the same borrowed jeans and sweater. The driver handed her a garment bag without a word. Inside, a midnight blue silk dress. Simple, elegant, devastating. And shoes, and a jewelry box with diamond earrings that caught the light like captured stars. There was a note. "These are yours now. Wear them and show him what he lost." Elena's hands shook as she held the dress. This was insane. This was reckless. This was everything she'd spent her life avoiding. She got dressed in the motel bathroom, put on the makeup she'd packed in her hospital locker, styled her hair with a cheap curling iron. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked powerful. She looked dangerous. She looked alive. The Mercedes drove through the city in silence. Elena watched the buildings slide past, her heart climbing into her throat with every block. By the time they pulled up in front of Casa Nero, she was shaking so hard she could barely breathe. The driver opened her door. "Mr. De Luca is waiting inside." Elena stepped out onto the sidewalk. Casa Nero rose in front of her, all white stone and dark windows and ivy crawling up the walls. Through the glass doors she could see people inside. Guests. White roses. Derek's family. And somewhere in there, Derek himself. She should run. She should get back in the car. She should... The door opened. Mateo stepped out. He wore a black suit that fit him like sin. His hair was perfectly styled. His scar caught the afternoon light. When he saw Elena, he went completely still. Then he smiled. Not the careful, controlled expression he'd worn yesterday. A real smile, slow and warm and absolutely devastating. "You came," he said. "I came." Mateo walked down the steps, offered his arm. Elena took it. His muscles were solid under her hand. He smelled like expensive cologne and danger. "You ready?" he asked. "No." "Good. The best things in life start with no." They walked through the doors of Casa Nero together, and the moment they stepped inside, every head in the restaurant turned to look at them. The dining room of Casa Nero held its breath. Elena felt every pair of eyes land on her like stones thrown at glass. The room was full, 50, maybe 60 people, scattered across white-clothed tables, crystal stemware catching the afternoon light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. White roses in tall vases, candles flickering even though it was 2 in the afternoon. A string quartet playing something soft and forgettable in the corner. And at the center table, beneath a ridiculous arch covered in more white roses, sat Derek and Lydia. Derek saw her first. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. His face went slack, then white, then red. Lydia followed his stare, turned in her chair, and her smile died so fast it might as well have never existed. She wore a cream-colored dress that probably cost a month's rent, a small tiara perched in her blonde hair. She looked like a child playing dress-up. Elena had never hated anyone more. Mateo's hand pressed against Elena's lower back. Not pushing, just there, a reminder that she wasn't alone. "Breathe," he said quietly. Elena realized she'd been holding her breath. She exhaled slow and steady. Mateo guided her forward, moving through the restaurant like he owned the air itself. Every server they passed immediately straightened. The maitre d' appeared out of nowhere, his face professionally neutral but his eyes wide. "Mr. De Luca," the maitre d' said. We weren't expecting... We won't be long, Matteo said. He led Elena to a table near the windows, not close to Derek and Lydia, but not far enough to hide, the perfect distance to be seen without being accused of interrupting. A waiter materialized with menus and water glasses. Matteo ordered a bottle of wine without looking at the list. The waiter vanished. Elena couldn't stop staring at Derek. He was staring back. Lydia had turned fully around now, her hand on Derek's arm like she was trying to anchor him to his chair. But Derek wasn't looking at Lydia. He was looking at Elena, at the dress, at the diamonds in her ears, at Matteo De Luca sitting across from her like it was the most natural thing in the world. He looks like he swallowed glass, Matteo said. Stop, Elena whispered. Why? This was your idea. No, it was yours. You showed up. The wine arrived. The waiter poured 2 glasses with shaking hands and disappeared again. Matteo lifted his glass. Elena lifted hers. They drank in silence while the entire restaurant pretended not to watch them. How long have you known him? Matteo asked. Derek? Yes, 10 years. Married for 6. Elena took another drink. The wine tasted like smoke and cherries. We met in college. He was studying business. I was pre-med before I switched to nursing. He seemed safe. Safe. Stable. Predictable. The kind of man who shows up when he says he will. Elena laughed quietly. Turns out predictable just meant boring, and boring men get bored. He's walking over here, Matteo said. Elena's stomach dropped. What? Don't turn around. Let him come to you. But Elena couldn't help it. She turned. Derek was crossing the restaurant, weaving between tables, his face twisted into something between anger and confusion. Lydia was half standing, one hand reaching after him, but he wasn't stopping. People were staring now. The string quartet had stopped playing. Derek reached their table and stopped. Up close, he looked terrible. Thinner than Elena remembered. Dark circles under his eyes. A tie that sat crooked against his collar. His hands were clenched into fists. Elena, he said. His voice came out strangled. What the hell are you doing here? Elena set down her wine glass very carefully. Having lunch. Here? Today? Is there a law against it? You know what I mean. Derek's eyes slid to Matteo, then back to Elena. Who is this? A friend. A friend. Derek's jaw tightened. You don't have friends like this. Matteo leaned back in his chair. He hadn't moved, hadn't tensed, but something about him had changed. The air around him felt colder, sharper, like standing too close to a blade. You should go back to your table, Matteo said. His voice was quiet, conversational, but it landed like a threat. Derek ignored him. Elena, I need to talk to you, alone. We're done talking, Elena said. We've been done for months. Just 5 minutes, please. No. Elena, she said no. Matteo's voice hadn't gotten louder, but everyone in the restaurant heard it anyway. Which part of that is confusing you? Derek's face went red. I'm sorry, who the fuck are you? The man who owns this restaurant. Matteo took a sip of wine. And right now, you're making my guest uncomfortable. So I'll ask one more time. Go back to your table. The threat wasn't hidden anymore. It sat out in the open, naked and ugly. Derek looked at Matteo like he was trying to decide if he was serious. Then he looked at the 2 men in dark suits standing near the entrance. Bodyguards. Elena hadn't even noticed them follow them inside. Derek's fists unclenched. This is pathetic, Elena. Moving on this fast? With him? You don't even know what you're doing. Maybe not, Elena said, but at least I'm doing something. You think this makes you look strong? You look desperate. The words hit harder than Elena expected. She felt her face flush, felt the familiar shame creeping up her throat. The same shame Derek had spent years planting inside her. Too emotional, too sensitive, too much. Then Matteo stood up. He didn't move fast, didn't make a scene, just rose from his chair and stepped around the table until he was standing between Elena and Derek. He was taller than Derek, broader, and when he looked down at Derek, his black eyes were completely empty. You have 10 seconds to walk away, Matteo said. After that, my men will remove you. And trust me when I say they won't be gentle. Derek opened his mouth, closed it, looked past Mateo at Elena one more time. "You're making a mistake," he said. "Maybe," Elena said, "but it's mine to make." Derek turned and walked back to his table. Lydia grabbed his arm the moment he sat down, whispering something frantic. Derek shook his head. Around the room, conversation slowly started again. The string quartet picked up their instruments. The world kept spinning. Mateo sat back down, picked up his wine glass like nothing had happened. "You okay?" Elena realized her hands were shaking. "I don't know." "You did good. I feel like I'm going to throw up." "That's normal." Mateo signaled for the waiter. "We should order. It'll look suspicious if we leave now." Elena wasn't hungry, but she nodded. Let Mateo order for both of them. Let the rituals of lunch carry her through the next 20 minutes while her brain tried to catch up with what had just happened. She'd done it. She'd walked into Derek's wedding and looked him in the eye and told him to go to hell. And she hadn't broken. The food arrived. Elena pushed it around her plate. Mateo ate slowly, watching the room with the same careful attention he'd given the courthouse steps yesterday, like he was reading a story written in body language and silence. "They're fighting," he said after a while. Elena looked up. Across the restaurant, Derek and Lydia were leaning close, their faces tight. Lydia's voice was too quiet to hear, but her hands moved in sharp, angry gestures. Derek kept shaking his head. An older woman at their table, Derek's mother, Elena realized, was watching them with a pinched expression. "Good," Elena said. "You really hate her." "Wouldn't you?" Mateo considered this. "I don't hate my ex-wife anymore. Hate takes energy. I just don't think about her." "How long did that take?" 8 years. He smiled faintly. "Give or take." They finished lunch. Mateo paid with a black credit card the waiter handled like it might explode. As they stood to leave, Lydia suddenly pushed back from her table and walked toward the bathroom. She moved fast, her cream dress swishing around her legs. Elena watched her go. "I need to use the restroom," Elena said. Mateo's eyes sharpened. "Bad idea." "I won't start anything." But she was already walking. Her heels clicked against the marble floor. She pushed through the door marked Women and found herself in a long room with gold mirrors and white marble sinks. Lydia stood at the far sink, bracing her hands against the counter, staring at her reflection. When she saw Elena in the mirror, her whole body went rigid. "Of course you'd follow me in here," Lydia said. Elena stopped a few feet away. "I didn't follow you. I just need to wash my hands." "Right." Lydia turned around. Up close, her makeup was smudged, mascara creeping toward her lower lashes. Her eyes were red. "That man out there, who is he?" "None of your business." "You're sleeping with him." Not a question, an accusation. "Still none of your business." Lydia laughed. It came out sharp and bitter. "You know what? Good for you. Seriously, I hope he's everything Derek wasn't. I hope he makes you feel special and wanted and all the things you couldn't get from your own husband." Elena's pulse kicked. "Careful." "Or what? You'll tell Derek? He already knows I think you're pathetic." "Then why are you crying?" Lydia flinched. Her hand flew to her face, smearing the mascara worse. "I'm not." "You are." Elena stepped closer. "What happened? Did Derek realize he made a mistake? Did he tell you he still thinks about me?" "Shut up. Or maybe it's something else." Elena's brain was catching up now, pulling together all the small details she'd seen at the table. The tension, the arguing, Derek's mother's disapproving face. "Money problems?" Lydia's expression cracked. Just for a second. But it was enough. "You're broke," Elena said slowly. "That's why you're fighting. Derek thought he was marrying someone with money and found out you have nothing. You don't know anything." "I know he cleaned out our savings account 3 days before the divorce finalized. $92,000. I know he told me it was for legal fees, but that was a lie. And I know you've been living in our old apartment for 6 months without paying rent because Derek's name is still on the lease." Elena's voice was getting louder. She didn't care. "So where did the money go, Lydia? What did you do with it?" Lydia's face twisted. "It's none of your—" "Gambling," Elena said. The word landed like a bomb. "You have a gambling problem. That's why you needed Derek. That's why you targeted him. You needed someone to pay off your debts." "You're insane." "Am I? Then why are you shaking?" Lydia lunged. Her hand came up fast, aiming for Elena's face. Elena caught her wrist on instinct. Years of working emergency room shifts had taught her how to block a hit. She twisted Lydia's arm, not hard, just enough to make her gasp and stumble back against the sink. "Don't," Elena said quietly. Lydia wrenched her arm free. Tears were streaming down her face now, ruining what was left of her makeup. "You think you're better than me? You think walking in here with that gangster makes you special? You're just another desperate woman clinging to whatever man will pay attention to you." The door opened. Matteo stepped inside. He took one look at Elena and Lydia and went very still. "Time to go," he said. "I'm not done," Elena said. "Yes, you are." Matteo's voice left no room for argument. He held out his hand. Elena stared at it for a second, then took it. Let him pull her toward the door. Behind them, Lydia was sobbing now, the sound ugly and broken. Matteo led Elena back through the restaurant. People stared. Derek half rose from his chair, but one of Matteo's bodyguards appeared out of nowhere and stepped between them. Derek sat back down. The Mercedes was waiting outside. Matteo opened the door. Elena got in. The door closed. The world disappeared again. Elena's hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. The adrenaline was draining out of her system, leaving behind something raw and electric and terrifying. "What happened in there?" Matteo asked. "She tried to hit me." "I know, I saw." Matteo's jaw was tight. "What did you say to her?" "The truth." Elena looked at him. "She has a gambling problem. That's why she went after Derek. She needed someone to pay her debts." Matteo was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Someone answered on the first ring. "I need everything you can find on Lydia Mercer," Matteo said. "Financial records, credit reports, casino records, everything. I want it by tonight." He ended the call. Elena stared at him. "Why?" "Because information is power. And if she's in debt, someone owns her. I want to know who." "This is insane. This is protection." Matteo leaned forward. "You embarrassed her in there, in front of her new husband and his family. She's going to retaliate. I'm making sure she can't." Elena's heart was pounding. "I don't need protection." "Everyone needs protection. The question is whether they're smart enough to accept it." The Mercedes pulled up in front of the Belladonna. Matteo got out. Elena followed. They rode the elevator in silence. When they reached the penthouse, Matteo poured them both whiskey instead of wine. Elena drank it too fast. The burn felt good. "Real." "Why are you doing this?" Elena asked. "Really? Not the speech about seeing yourself in me. The real reason." Matteo swirled his whiskey. "You want honesty?" "Yes." "Because I'm selfish." He took a drink. "Because 8 years ago I lost everything that mattered. And when I saw you on those courthouse steps, I saw a chance to, I don't know, fix something, save something, prove that the man I used to be still exists somewhere under all this." He gestured at himself. "At the expensive suit, at the scars, at the penthouse. Does that make me a good person? No, but it makes me honest." Elena set down her glass. Walked to the windows. The city stretched out below them, vast and indifferent. Somewhere down there, Derek was probably still fighting with Lydia, probably realizing the woman he left Elena for was nothing but debts and lies. "I'm not going back to him," Elena said. "Even if this all falls apart, even if you disappear tomorrow, I'm never going back." "I know. I don't want to be saved." "I know that too." Elena turned. Matteo was watching her with those unreadable black eyes. "Then what do you want from me?" "Nothing. Liar." Matteo's mouth curved, almost a smile. "Maybe I want to see what happens when you stop being afraid. Maybe I want to see who you become when you're not carrying someone else's weight." He stood, walked closer. "Or maybe I just like the way you look at me. Like I'm dangerous, but you don't care." Elena's pulse was racing. "You are dangerous." "So are you. You just don't know it yet." The air between them felt charged, electric. Elena knew she should step back, should leave, should run before this thing between them turned into something she couldn't control. Instead, she stayed exactly where she was. Matteo reached up and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers were warm, careful. "I'm not going to kiss you," he said quietly. "Why not?" "Because when I do, I want you to be sure. I want you to choose it, not because you're angry at your ex, not because you're trying to prove something, but because you want me. His thumb traced her jawline. So I'm going to wait. And when you're ready, you'll tell me. Elena couldn't breathe. That's manipulative. That's patience. He stepped back, picked up his whiskey, took a drink like he hadn't just set Elena's entire nervous system on fire. Stay here tonight, Matteo said. Guest room. My sister's clothes. No strings. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next. Elena should have said no, should have called a cab, should have done anything except what she actually did. Okay, she said. Matteo showed her to the guest room. It was smaller than the master suite, but still larger than most studio apartments. King-sized bed, private bathroom, windows overlooking the city. He left her there with a glass of water and a quiet goodnight. Elena lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed. A text from Derek. We need to talk. Please. She deleted it, blocked his number, turned off her phone. She fell asleep thinking about Matteo's hand against her jaw, about the way he'd looked at her like she was something worth waiting for, about the way her heart had kicked when he said when I do instead of if I do. She woke to someone pounding on the door. Elena shot upright. The clock on the nightstand read 3:47 a.m. The pounding came again, louder, more insistent. She heard voices in the hallway. Matteo's voice, angry, sharp. Then another voice, male, unfamiliar. Elena grabbed the robe from the end of the bed and opened the door. Matteo stood in the hallway wearing black sleep pants and nothing else. His chest was scarred. More burns. More knife wounds. A bullet hole near his ribs. He was arguing with a man in a suit, one of his bodyguards. I don't care what time it is, the bodyguard was saying. He's downstairs. Won't leave until he sees you. Who? Elena asked. Both men turned. Matteo's expression shifted when he saw her, softened, just for a second. Then the hardness came back. Go back to bed, Matteo said. What's happening? Nothing you need to worry about. Matteo. Elena. He stepped closer, lowered his voice. Please, go back inside. Lock the door. I'll handle this. Handle what? The bodyguard's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. Boss, we have a problem. Matteo took the phone, read whatever was on the screen. His jaw tightened. Get the car, now. The bodyguard disappeared. Matteo looked at Elena. Get dressed, fast, we're leaving. Leaving? It's 4 a.m. I know what time it is, get dressed. Elena wanted to argue, but something in Matteo's face stopped her. She went back into the guest room, pulled on jeans and a sweater, shoved her feet into shoes. When she came back out, Matteo was dressed too. Black jeans, black shirt, a gun holster over his shoulder. Elena froze. What? Don't ask. Matteo took her hand. Just stay close to me. Do exactly what I say. Understand? Elena nodded. Her throat was too tight to speak. They took the elevator down. Not to the lobby. To a lower floor Elena hadn't known existed. Underground parking. The Mercedes was waiting, so were 4 bodyguards, all of them armed. Matteo opened the back door and practically shoved Elena inside. Where are we going? Elena asked. Matteo got in beside her. My house, it's more secure. Secure from what? The driver pulled out fast, tires squealing. They shot up the ramp and into the street. Through the back window, Elena saw headlights behind them, following. The driver took a sharp turn. The headlights followed. Matteo, what is happening? Someone leaked information about you, Matteo said. His voice was calm, too calm. About you being with me. And now people who want to hurt me are going to try to use you to do it. Elena's blood went cold. What? It's fine. We're handling it. It's not fine. You said I'd be safe. You are safe, as long as you're with me. The Mercedes took another turn. The headlights fell back. But Elena's heart was racing. This was real. This wasn't some dramatic gesture or revenge fantasy. Matteo De Luca wasn't just a rich man with a dark past. He was exactly what the rumors said. Dangerous, connected, deadly. And Elena had walked right into his world like it was a game. They drove for 40 minutes. Out of the city. Into suburbs Elena had never seen. estates hidden behind gates and walls and trees. The Mercedes turned onto a private road and stopped at a security gate. Guards checked the car, checked IDs, waved them through. The house at the end of the driveway was massive, stone and glass and enough land to get lost in. Mateo led Elena inside. More bodyguards, security cameras, a control room with monitors showing every angle of the property. Mateo's phone rang. He answered it, listened. His face went dark. "When?" he asked. Silence. "How many?" More silence. "Handle it. I'll be there in an hour." He hung up, looked at Elena. "I have to go," he said. "You stay here. My men will watch you. Don't leave the house. Don't answer the door. Don't call anyone." "What happened?" Mateo hesitated. Then he said quietly, "Your ex-husband showed up at my restaurant tonight, drunk, caused a scene. My men removed him. He's been calling my office every hour since, threatening to go to the press with stories about me, about you, about us." Elena's stomach dropped. Derek wouldn't... He already did. There's a reporter outside the Belladonna right now asking questions about you, about how fast you moved on, about whether I paid you to show up at the wedding. Mateo's jaw was so tight, Elena thought it might crack. "So now I have to go clean up a mess that shouldn't exist. And you have to stay here where no one can find you until I figure out how to fix this. This is my fault." "This is his fault." Mateo stepped close, put his hands on her shoulders. "Listen to me. Derek is scared. He knows he screwed up. He knows he lost you to someone he can't compete with. So now he's lashing out, trying to drag you down with him. But I won't let him. You understand? I will burn his entire life to the ground before I let him touch you." The words should have scared Elena. They didn't. They made her feel something else entirely. Safe, protected, chosen. And that was more terrifying than anything. "Go," Elena said. "Do what you need to do." Mateo kissed her forehead. Quick, gentle. Then he was gone. Elena stood in the massive house surrounded by armed men, wearing borrowed clothes, caught in the middle of a war she didn't fully understand. And the worst part? She didn't want to leave. She wanted to stay. Wanted to see what happened next. Wanted to know what it felt like to be the kind of woman who didn't run from danger. Outside, dawn was breaking. The sky turned gray, then pink, then gold. Elena watched through the windows and thought about Derek, about the courthouse steps, about the moment she'd gotten into Mateo's car and let him take her away from everything she'd ever known. There was no going back now. The point of no return had already passed, and Elena had crossed it willingly, eyes wide open, heart pounding, standing beside a man who promised to protect her with violence and fire. She just hoped. She just hoped she hadn't made the biggest mistake of her life. The house was silent, except for the footsteps of bodyguards patrolling the halls. Elena sat on a leather couch in what Mateo called the study, a room lined with books she suspected he'd never read, and furniture that looked more like museum pieces than things people actually used. Through the windows, she could see the grounds stretching into morning mist. Trees, walls, iron gates, a prison disguised as paradise. Her phone was still off. She'd left it that way after blocking Derek, but now sitting alone in Mateo's fortress while he went to handle whatever mess Derek had created, Elena felt the urge to turn it back on, to see what was being said, to know what stories were spreading through the city like gasoline waiting for a match. She didn't. Instead, she stood and walked through the house. A bodyguard, the same one from the penthouse, the one who'd looked pale when he showed Mateo his phone, shadowed her from a respectful distance. She pretended not to notice, moved from room to room like she was touring a hotel, kitchen with marble counters, dining room with a table that could seat 20, living room with windows overlooking a pool that reflected the gray morning sky. Then she found a room that didn't match the others. It was smaller, warmer. The furniture looked used, a desk covered in papers and file folders, bookshelves filled with actual books, their spines cracked and worn, photographs on the walls. Mateo in his 20s standing beside an older man who had the same sharp jaw and dark eyes. Mateo in a suit, shaking hands with a mayor Elena recognized from campaign posters. Mateo at a wedding. His wedding, Elena realized. The woman beside him was beautiful. Dark hair, red lips, a smile that looked like a knife. Elena stepped closer, stared at the photograph, at Mateo's face. He looked younger, softer, happy in a way Elena hadn't seen yet. The woman's hand rested on his chest, possessive and proud. Behind them, men in expensive suits raised champagne glasses. "That's Isabella," a voice said behind her. Elena spun. The bodyguard stood in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. "His wife," the bodyguard continued. "Ex-wife. Been 8 years since anyone said her name in this house." "What happened to her?" The bodyguard's jaw tightened. "Not my place to say, ma'am. But you know, everyone who works for Mr. DeLuca knows. We just don't talk about it." He shifted his weight. "You should come away from there. He doesn't like people in his private office." Elena looked back at the photograph, at Isabella's smile, at the way Mateo looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. She felt something cold settle in her stomach. Not jealousy, something worse. Recognition. Mateo had looked at Elena the same way yesterday, like she mattered, like she was worth protecting, worth saving, but he'd looked at Isabella that way too. And Isabella had destroyed him. Elena followed the bodyguard back to the study, sat down, waited. The clock on the wall ticked through the minutes. 7 a.m. became 8. 8 became 9. Her stomach growled. Someone brought her coffee and toast she couldn't eat. The bodyguard's phone rang twice. Both times he stepped into the hall to answer, his voice too low for Elena to hear. At 9:30, the front door opened. Footsteps in the hall. Mateo appeared in the doorway looking like he'd aged 10 years in 6 hours. His shirt was untucked, his hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes that matched the ones Elena had seen on Derek yesterday. "It's handled," Mateo said. Elena stood. "What does that mean?" "It means Derek Vale won't be talking to any reporters. Not now. Not ever." Mateo walked to the bar cart in the corner and poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, even though it wasn't even 10 in the morning. He drank it in one swallow. "And it means you're safe. How did you—" "Don't ask questions you don't want answered." The words landed like a slap. Elena took a step back. "Did you hurt him?" "No." "Did your men?" "No." Mateo poured another whiskey. "I bought him." Elena stared. "What?" "Derek Vale has debts. Gambling debts, it turns out." Lydia wasn't the only one with a problem. "He's into a sports betting operation for $73,000. Payment's been overdue for 3 months. The people he owes were about to start breaking fingers." Mateo took a slower drink this time. "So I paid his debt. All of it. In exchange for his silence. He signed a contract. He talks to the press. He talks to anyone about you or me, and I own everything he has. His car, his apartment, the small trust fund his parents set up. Everything." Elena's legs felt weak. She sat down hard on the couch. "You bought my ex-husband's silence. I bought your safety. That's the same thing." "Is it?" Mateo set down his glass, walked over, sat beside her on the couch. "Elena, men like Derek don't stop. They don't walk away. They dig in deeper, get louder, make bigger scenes until someone pays attention. I've seen it 100 times. He would have destroyed you trying to save himself, so I made sure he can't. By making him your puppet, by giving him a choice. Stay quiet and his debts disappear, or keep talking and lose everything." Mateo's voice was cold. Final. He chose to stay quiet. Elena pressed her hands against her face. Her brain couldn't process this. Yesterday she was having lunch. Today Mateo owned Derek's life. This is insane. This is protection. This is control. Elena looked at him. "You don't protect people, Mateo. You collect them. You buy them. I save them." Mateo's eyes flashed. Derek was about to lose his hands. Literally. The men he owes don't negotiate. They hurt people until the money appears. So yes, I stepped in. Yes, I used money to solve a problem. And yes, now Derek owes me. But he's alive. His fingers still work. And you're not on the front page of tomorrow's paper with your entire life dissected by strangers. So forgive me if I don't apologize for doing what needed to be done. Elena couldn't argue with that. Didn't want to. But the cold feeling in her stomach was spreading. This was Mateo's world. money and threats and contracts signed under duress. She'd walked into it willingly. But now, sitting in his house surrounded by his guards while he talked about buying people's silence like it was normal, Elena realized how deep she'd actually gone. "I want to go home," she said quietly. "You don't have a home, remember?" The words weren't cruel, just factual, and that made them worse. "Then take me to a hotel, anywhere. I need—" Elena's throat tightened. "I need space." Mateo studied her for a long moment, then he nodded. "Okay, I'll have someone drive you." "Not your men. A cab." "Elena, please." She stood. "I need to do this alone." Mateo's jaw worked, but he pulled out his phone and made a call. 10 minutes later, a regular yellow cab pulled up outside. No Mercedes, no bodyguards. Just a cab. Elena walked outside into the cold morning air. Mateo followed her to the car. "Where will you go?" he asked. "I don't know yet. Call me when you figure it out." Elena got in the cab without answering, gave the driver an address, the motel near the hospital where she'd stayed 2 nights ago. As the cab pulled away, she looked back. Mateo stood in the driveway, hands in his pockets, watching her leave. The house rose behind him like a monument to everything he'd built, everything he controlled, everything Elena was terrified of becoming part of. The motel room looked worse in daylight. Water-stained ceiling, carpet that might have been beige once, a mattress that sagged in the middle. Elena locked the door, drew the curtains, sat on the bed and finally turned on her phone. 47 missed calls, 63 texts, most from numbers she didn't recognize, 3 from Derek, 2 from her sister, 1 from the hospital where she used to work. She ignored all of them except her sister's. "Elena, what's going on?" "Someone called asking about you and some mafia guy. Call me." "Now." Elena's hands shook as she dialed. Her sister picked up on the first ring. "Jesus Christ, Elena, where have you been?" "It's complicated." "Complicated? I had a reporter call me yesterday asking if you were dating Matteo De Luca." "Matteo De Luca. Do you know who that man is?" "Yes." "Then what the hell are you doing with him?" Elena closed her eyes. "I don't know anymore." Her sister was quiet for a moment, then softer. "Are you safe?" "I think so." "That's not the same as yes." "I know." "Elena, listen to me. Whatever's going on, you need to get out. Men like that don't date women. They own them. They control them. And when they're done, they throw them away. He's not like that. You've known him for 2 days. 2 days. Elena's stomach turned. Her sister was right. 48 hours ago, Elena had been standing on courthouse steps in the rain. Now she was hiding in a motel room while Matteo De Luca bought her ex-husband's silence and reporters asked questions about her life. "I have to go," Elena said. "Elena," she hung up, turned off her phone again, lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Her sister's words echoed in her skull. They own them. They control them. When they're done, they throw them away. Elena thought about Isabella, about the photograph on Matteo's office wall, about the way he'd looked at his wife before she betrayed him, about the way he looked at Elena now. She fell asleep without meaning to. When she woke, the room was dark. She'd slept through the entire day. Her body ached. Her mouth tasted like copper. She stumbled to the bathroom, splashed water on her face, stared at her reflection. She looked like hell. Dark circles, unwashed hair, wearing clothes that weren't hers. Someone knocked on the door. Elena froze. The knock came again, harder. "Elena, open the door." Not Matteo's voice, a woman's voice, sharp, familiar. Elena opened the door. Lydia stood in the hallway wearing jeans and an oversized sweater. No makeup. Her hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She looked smaller than Elena remembered. Younger, almost fragile. "How did you find me?" Elena asked. "I followed you from Matteo's house this morning." Lydia's voice shook. "I've been sitting in my car outside for 9 hours waiting for you to wake up." "Why?" "Because we need to talk, and you need to hear what I have to say before it's too late." Every instinct told Elena to slam the door, to call Matteo, to do anything except let Lydia Mercer into her motel room. But something in Lydia's face stopped her. She looked terrified. "You have 5 minutes," Elena said. Lydia stepped inside, looked around the room, sat on the edge of the bed like she might bolt any second. Elena stayed by the door, kept it cracked, kept her options open. Matteo DeLuca is using you, Lydia said. Elena laughed, bitter. That's what you came here to say? That's your big revelation? I'm serious. He doesn't care about you. This whole thing, the lunch, the protection, buying Derek's debt, it's not about you. Then what's it about? Lydia's hands twisted together in her lap. Revenge. He's using you to get revenge on someone. And when he's done, he'll destroy you just like he destroys everyone else who gets in his way. Elena's pulse kicked. Revenge on who? His ex-wife, Isabella. The name hit like a punch. Elena took a step closer. What are you talking about? Isabella DeLuca isn't dead. She's alive, living in Chicago under a different name, and she's my cousin. The world tilted. Elena grabbed the dresser to steady herself. You're lying. I'm not. Lydia pulled out her phone, showed Elena a photograph. 2 women at a restaurant smiling at the camera. One was Lydia. The other was the woman from Matteo's office, Isabella. Older now. Different hair, but the same face, the same knife smile. She told me everything, Lydia said, about Matteo. About how he destroyed her life when she tried to leave him. About how he spent the last 8 years tracking down anyone connected to her and making their lives hell. Politicians she knew, men she dated, even her family. Elena couldn't breathe. Why would she tell you that? Because she wanted to warn me. Said if I ever got involved with anyone connected to Matteo, I needed to run. But I didn't listen. Lydia's voice cracked. I met Derek at a bar 6 months ago. He mentioned he was going through a divorce, mentioned his wife worked brutal hours and never had time for him. I thought he was just another lonely guy looking for attention. I didn't know. She stopped, swallowed hard. I didn't know Isabella had given Matteo a list of names. People she thought might hurt him. Your name was on that list, Elena. Elena's blood went cold. What? Isabella told Matteo you were having an affair with someone in his organization, some lieutenant named Marco. It was a lie. Complete fiction. But Matteo believed her because that's what she does. She lies, and people believe her. So he put you on a watch list, waiting, and the moment your marriage fell apart, he saw his opportunity. You're insane. I'm telling you the truth. Lydia stood, stepped closer. Think about it. What are the odds that Matteo DeLuca just happened to be at the courthouse the exact moment you walked out? That he just happened to notice you? That he just happened to own the restaurant where Derek was getting married? It's not coincidence, Elena. He planned all of it. He's been watching you for months, waiting for you to be vulnerable enough to believe him. Elena's brain was spinning, trying to find holes in Lydia's story, trying to make it not make sense. But the pieces were fitting together too perfectly. The way Matteo had been so calm when he found her, the way he'd known exactly what to say, the way he'd inserted himself into her life like he'd been waiting for his cue. Why would he do this? Elena whispered. Because Isabella's list included people Matteo actually cared about, people she thought he'd protect, and every single one of them has disappeared or been destroyed in the last 8 years. You're just next in line. He's going to make you fall in love with him, make you dependent on him, and then he's going to take everything you have and leave you with nothing, just like he did to the others. Others? Lydia showed Elena another photo, a young woman, pretty, smiling. Her name was Christina. She was on Isabella's list. Matteo pursued her for 6 months, made her fall in love. Then he drained her bank accounts, destroyed her credit, and framed her for embezzlement. She's in prison right now, serving 5 years. Another photo. Another woman. Rachel. Same thing. Different ending. She killed herself 3 months after Matteo was done with her. Elena's knees buckled. She sat down hard on the floor. No. I have proof. Bank records. Police reports. Isabella kept everything because she knew someday someone would need to see it, would need to understand what Matteo DeLuca really is. Lydia knelt beside Elena. I know you don't trust me. I know I ruined your marriage. But Elena, please. You have to get away from him before it's too late. Elena's vision blurred. She pressed her hands against her face, tried to think, tried to breathe, tried to make any of this make sense. Why are you telling me this? Elena asked. Why do you care? Because Derek loves you. Lydia's voice broke. He fucked up. He made the worst mistake of his life. But he loves you. And when he found out Mateo was using you, when he realized what was happening, he went crazy. That's why he went to the restaurant. That's why he threatened to go to the press. He was trying to save you. By destroying me publicly? By making enough noise that Mateo would have to back off. But it didn't work. Mateo's too powerful. He shut Derek down before anyone listened. Lydia grabbed Elena's hands. Please, come with me right now. I have a car. I have money. We can drive to my cousin's house in Chicago. Isabella will explain everything, show you everything, and then you can decide if you want to go back to Mateo. Elena pulled her hands away. I need time to think. There is no time. Mateo's men are probably already looking for you. The moment he figures out I'm here, he'll come, and then it'll be too late. Elena stood, paced the small room. Her brain wouldn't stop spinning. Everything Lydia said made horrible, perfect sense. But it also sounded insane, like a conspiracy theory stitched together from coincidence and paranoia. I need proof, Elena said. Real proof. Not photos. Not stories. Something concrete. Then come with me to Chicago. Isabella has files, documents, everything you need to see the truth. I can't just leave. Yes, you can. That's exactly what you do, right now, before he finds us. Elena looked at Lydia, at the fear in her eyes, at the desperation. She thought about Mateo, about the way he'd wrapped her bleeding hand, about the way he'd stood between her and Derek, about the way he'd looked at her like she mattered. But she also thought about Isabella, about the photograph on his wall, about the women Lydia claimed he'd destroyed, about the way predators always looked like saviors at first. Okay, Elena said. I'll go. Lydia's face flooded with relief. Thank you. God, thank you. Get your things. We need to leave right now. Elena grabbed the few belongings she had, pulled on a jacket, followed Lydia out to the parking lot. A beat-up Honda Civic sat in the corner. Lydia got behind the wheel. Elena climbed into the passenger seat. The engine started. They pulled out onto the street. Elena looked back at the motel, at the room she'd been hiding in, at the city disappearing behind them. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. A text from Mateo. Where are you? Call me, please. Elena stared at the message. Her thumb hovered over the call button. Then she turned off her phone. They drove in silence. Lydia gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. Elena watched the highway signs blur past. Chicago, 6 hours. 6 hours to figure out if she'd just made the right decision or the biggest mistake of her life. Thank you for trusting me, Lydia said after a while. Elena didn't answer, because the truth was, she didn't trust Lydia, didn't trust anyone anymore. But she needed to know, needed to see the proof, needed to understand if Matteo DeLuca was the man who saved her or the man who was slowly destroying her. The sky darkened as they drove. Rain started. Light at first, then heavier. Lydia turned on the wipers. They drove through small towns, past truck stops and gas stations. Elena dozed off somewhere around midnight. When she woke, they were pulling into a residential neighborhood. Nice houses. Quiet streets. Lydia parked in front of a 2-story colonial with dark windows. This is it, Lydia said. Isabella's house. They got out, walked to the front door. Lydia knocked. No answer. Knocked again. The door opened. A man stood there, tall, broad shoulders, face Elena didn't recognize. He smiled. Right on time, he said. Elena's stomach dropped. Who? Pain exploded across the back of her skull. The world tilted. She felt herself falling, felt hands catch her, felt the ground disappear. Then nothing. When Elena woke, she was tied to a chair in a basement she didn't recognize. Concrete walls. One light bulb. No windows. Her head throbbed. Blood dried on the back of her neck. She tried to move. The ropes bit into her wrists. Across the room, Lydia sat in another chair, also tied, but not unconscious. She was crying, shaking, mascara running down her face. I'm sorry, Lydia sobbed. I'm so sorry. They said they'd kill me. They said if I didn't bring you, they'd... The door opened. 2 men walked in. The same man who'd answered the door. And behind him, someone Elena recognized from the photos Lydia had shown her. Isabella DeLuca stepped into the light. 8 years older than the wedding photo. Harder. Meaner. but still beautiful in a way that made Elena's skin crawl. "Hello, Elena," Isabella said. Her voice was smooth, cultured, like a teacher greeting a student. "We have so much to talk about." Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. She pulled at the ropes. They didn't budge. "What do you want?" Elena's voice came out hoarse. Isabella smiled, pulled up a third chair, sat down like they were having coffee. "I want you to deliver a message to my ex-husband, a message he'll finally understand." "I don't—" "You're bait, sweetheart, nothing personal, but Mateo has something I want, and the only way to get it is to take something he wants." Isabella leaned forward. "You should feel flattered. It's been 8 years since Mateo cared enough about anyone to make them a target. I was starting to think he'd forgotten how." Elena's breath came in short gasps. "He doesn't care about me. We only just met. And yet he bought your ex-husband's debt, moved you into his house, put his best men on your protection detail. Mateo doesn't do that for people he doesn't care about. Trust me. I know exactly how he operates." "What do you want from him?" "Money, lots of it. And information about his current operations. Nothing he can't afford to lose, but he'll fight anyway because that's what men like Mateo do. They fight for their things. And right now, Elena, you're his thing." Isabella stood, walked to the door, stopped, looked back. "Someone will call him soon. Let him know we have you, and then we'll see exactly how much you're worth to him. Try not to be too disappointed when you find out it's less than you hoped." She left. The men followed, the door closed, the lock clicked. Lydia was still crying. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. They told me to bring you here. They said it was safe. They said—" "Shut up!" Elena's voice was cold, flat. "Just shut up." She pulled at the ropes again. Her wrists burned. Blood slicked her skin. But the knots held. She was trapped. Alone. In a basement with a woman who'd betrayed her twice now. And somewhere in the city, Mateo was about to get a phone call that would change everything. Elena closed her eyes. Thought about the courthouse steps, about the rain, about the moment she'd gotten into Mateo's car and let him take her somewhere safe. She'd thought she was choosing power. Turned out she'd just traded one cage for another. And this time, there was no one coming to save her. The thought settled into Elena's chest like a stone dropped into dark water. She'd spent her whole life waiting to be saved, waiting for Derek to notice her, waiting for the hospital to appreciate her, waiting for someone, anyone, to see her as worth protecting. And now here she was, tied to a chair in a basement, blood drying on her scalp, wrists raw from rope, all because she'd believed Mateo DeLuca when he'd said she was safe. Lydia was still sobbing. The sound grated against Elena's nerves like nails on concrete. "How long have you been working with her?" Elena asked. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Don't lie to me. Not now." Lydia's crying hitched. She looked up. Her face was a mess, mascara everywhere, snot running from her nose. 3 months. Isabella found me 3 months ago. Said if I helped her, she'd pay off my debts, all of them. I just had to—" She stopped, swallowed. "I had to get close to Derek. Make him fall for me. Get him to divorce you. And then when Mateo showed up, when he started circling you, I was supposed to bring you to her." Elena's stomach turned. "You planned all of it." "Not all of it. I didn't know Derek would actually fall in love with me. I didn't know he'd—" Lydia's voice cracked. "I didn't know it would get this bad. But you did it anyway. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice." Elena pulled at the ropes again. The knots were tight, professional. Whoever tied her knew what they were doing. "How did you know where to find me at the motel?" "Isabella had someone following you from the moment you met Mateo. They tracked your phone, your movements, everything." Elena's blood went cold. "My phone. They cloned it. Everything you text, everything you search, they see it all." Which meant Mateo's messages, his location, his house. Everything Elena knew about him, Isabella knew too. "How long until they call him?" Elena asked. "I don't know. Soon, I think. They're waiting for—" Lydia stopped. Footsteps on the stairs. The door opened. Isabella walked back in, alone this time. She held a phone in one hand, a gun in the other. "Good news," Isabella said brightly. "Mateo answered on the first ring, almost like he was waiting by the phone. Sweet, really, in a pathetic sort of way. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. What did you tell him? The truth. That I have his new pet. That if he wants her back, he'll bring me $10 million and the access codes to his offshore accounts. He has 12 hours. Isabella glanced at her watch. Actually, 11 hours and 47 minutes now. Better hope he moves fast. He won't pay. Oh, sweetheart. He will, because I know my ex-husband, and I know exactly what he does when someone threatens something he considers his. Isabella walked closer, pressed the gun barrel under Elena's chin, cold metal against hot skin. He destroys them, completely, violently, without mercy. So yes, he'll pay, because if he doesn't, you die, and then he'll spend the rest of his life hunting everyone connected to this, including me. And I'm tired of running. Elena held very still, tried not to breathe too hard, tried not to think about the gun or the woman holding it, or the fact that her life had come down to $10 million and a man she'd known for 3 days. Why me? Elena whispered. If you wanted Mateo's money, why not just ask for it? Why drag me into this? Because money isn't the point. Pain is. Isabella pulled the gun away, stepped back. Mateo took everything from me 8 years ago. My home, my name, my future. He turned everyone I knew against me. Made me a ghost. So now I'm going to make him feel exactly what I felt. I'm going to take something he cares about and break it in front of him, and then I'm going to watch him try to put it back together and fail. We're not. Elena's throat closed. He doesn't care about me like that. Then you're about to find out exactly how little you're worth. Isabella smiled. It was the cruelest thing Elena had ever seen. Either way, this ends badly for you. If he pays, you go back to him knowing you're just a transaction, a thing he bought because it was easier than losing. And if he doesn't pay, she lifted the gun, pointed it at Elena's head. Well, you won't have to worry about anything anymore. She left again. The door closed. The lock clicked. Lydia was shaking so hard the chair rattled. We're going to die. Oh my God, we're going to die. Shut up. Elena twisted her wrists. The rope burned. Blood made her skin slick. She pulled harder. Something gave. Not much, but enough. How many people are in this house? Maybe 4? 5? I don't know. Are they armed? Yes. All of them. Elena kept working this rope. Her wrists screamed. She ignored it, pulled, twisted, felt the knot loosen just slightly. Is there another way out of this basement? I don't think so. Look around. Tell me what you see. Lydia's head swiveled. Concrete walls, the stairs, some boxes, a water heater. That's it. Windows? No. Tools? Wait, there. Behind the water heater, I think I see something. Elena looked. A metal pipe leaning against the wall. Rusted, old, but solid. Can you reach it? I'm tied to a chair. Then move the chair. Lydia tried. The chair legs scraped against concrete, loud, too loud. Elena froze, listened. Footsteps above them. Someone walking. They stopped directly over the basement. Elena held her breath. The footsteps moved away. Keep going, Elena whispered. Slowly. Lydia inched the chair across the floor. It took 5 minutes. Maybe 10. Time moved wrong in the basement. Finally, she reached the water heater, stretched her tied hands behind her. Her fingers grazed the pipe. Couldn't quite grip it. I can't. Try again. Lydia stretched, grunted. Her fingertips caught the pipe. It fell. Hit the concrete with a metallic clang that echoed through the basement like a gunshot. Footsteps pounded overhead. The door at the top of the stairs flew open. A man came down fast, the same one who'd hit Elena earlier. He saw Lydia by the water heater, the pipe on the floor. His face darkened. The fuck do you think you're doing? He crossed the basement in 3 strides, grabbed Lydia by the hair, yanked her head back. Lydia screamed. The man raised his fist. Stop, Elena said. Her voice cut through the basement. She was trying to help me. I told her to do it. You want to hit someone? Hit me. The man turned, looked at Elena, smiled. Don't worry, I will. He dropped Lydia, walked toward Elena. His fist came up. Elena braced herself. The punch never landed. because in that moment the basement window, the one Lydia said didn't exist, exploded inward in a shower of glass and wood. A body came through, hit the concrete rolling, came up with a gun already firing. The first shot hit the man in the chest. He went down hard. The second shot hit the stairs. Splintered wood. Whoever was shooting wasn't shooting to wound. More glass. More bodies. 3 men in tactical gear poured through the window like water through a broken dam. Elena couldn't see their faces. Just black masks and weapons and precision that came from years of training. Mateo's men. Gunfire erupted upstairs, shouting. Something heavy crashed. Elena couldn't see what was happening, but she could hear it. The symphony of violence playing out in stereo above her head. One of the masked men cut Elena's ropes with a knife that looked like it could gut a bear. Her hands fell free. Blood rushed back into her fingers. She gasped. The man didn't speak, just moved to Lydia, cut her ropes too. "Upstairs," he said. His voice was muffled behind the mask. "Stay behind me." They moved fast. Up the stairs. Through the door. Into chaos. The house was a war zone. Bullet holes in the walls, blood on the carpet. 2 men down in the hallway. One of them was the man who'd answered the door earlier. He wasn't moving. The other was trying to crawl toward a gun. One of Mateo's men kicked it away, put a bullet in his shoulder. The crawling stopped. "Elena." She turned. Mateo stood in the kitchen doorway. He looked like he'd walked through hell to get there. Blood on his shirt. A cut above his eye. His gun was still in his hand. And when he saw Elena, when he saw the blood on her wrists and the bruise forming on her face, something in his expression turned absolutely feral. "Where is she?" Mateo asked. His voice was quiet. Too quiet. Elena didn't have to ask who he meant. "I don't know. She was here 10 minutes ago." "Find her," Mateo said to his men. "Alive. I want her alive." The men scattered. Boots pounded through the house. Doors slammed open. Elena heard someone shout from upstairs. More gunfire. Then silence. Mateo crossed the kitchen, took Elena's face in his hands, checked her injuries with the careful attention of someone who'd seen a lot of damaged people. "Can you walk?" "Yes." "Can you run?" "If I have to." "Good." He pulled out his phone, called someone. "Building secure, bring the car." He hung up, looked at Elena. "We need to leave, now, before someone calls the police." "What about Isabella?" "Gone. Probably the moment my men breached the perimeter. She's smart. Always was." Mateo's jaw tightened. "But she won't stay gone. Not after this." Outside, a black SUV pulled up. Not the Mercedes. Something bigger. Armored. Mateo guided Elena toward it. His hand never left her back, like he was afraid she'd disappear if he stopped touching her. Lydia stumbled behind them. One of Mateo's men grabbed her arm. "What about this one?" Mateo turned, looked at Lydia like she was something he'd scraped off his shoe. "Take her to the warehouse. I'll deal with her later." "No," Elena said. Everyone stopped. Mateo's eyes narrowed. "Elena, she's coming with us." "She set you up." "I know, but she didn't have a choice. Isabella threatened her, used her, the same way she's using everyone." Elena stepped between Mateo and Lydia. "So she comes with us. Or I don't get in that car." The silence stretched. Mateo's men shifted uncomfortably. No one argued with Mateo De Luca. Ever. But here was Elena, 3 days into knowing him, drawing a line in the dirt. Finally, Mateo nodded. "Fine. She comes. But she rides in the back. And if she tries anything, I put a bullet in her myself." They got in the SUV, Mateo beside Elena, Lydia in the far back with one of the masked men watching her like a hawk. The driver pulled away fast, took side streets, avoided main roads. Elena watched Chicago disappear through the tinted windows. "How did you find me?" she asked. "You're wearing my sister's clothes." Mateo's voice was flat, empty. "There's a tracker sewn into the lining. Has been since she got kidnapped 4 years ago. I tracked you to the motel, then to the highway, then here." Elena's stomach dropped. "You've been tracking me?" "I track everyone who matters." "That's insane. That's survival." Mateo finally looked at her. "You think this is the first time someone's tried to use you against me? The moment Isabella saw us together at that restaurant, I knew she'd come for you. I just didn't think you'd make it this easy." The words hit like a slap. Easy? You got in a car with Lydia, the woman who destroyed your marriage, the woman who had every reason to hate you, and you believed her when she said she wanted to help. She showed me proof. She showed you lies. Mateo's voice rose. Actually rose. Elena had never heard him yell. Photos anyone could fake, stories anyone could tell. And you believed it all because you wanted to believe I was the monster, because that would make everything simpler, cleaner. You could walk away and tell yourself you escaped something terrible instead of admitting you were scared of something good. Elena's face burned. You don't know what I know exactly what you felt, because I felt it too. That terror when someone gets close, that voice in your head saying it's safer to run than to trust. I lived that way for 8 years. And then you showed up on those courthouse steps and I thought, he stopped, looked away. I thought maybe I could stop running. Maybe we both could. You lied to me. I protected you. By tracking me, by buying Derek's debt, by controlling every part of my life, by keeping you alive. Mateo's eyes flashed. You think you'd be sitting here right now if I hadn't? You think Isabella would have just let you go? She wanted to use you to hurt me, and if I hadn't paid, if I hadn't moved fast enough, she would have killed you and sent me the video. Because that's what she does. That's what she's always done. Elena couldn't argue with that, because he was right. Isabella had stood in that basement with a gun to her head and smiled while talking about breaking things. I'm sorry, Elena said quietly. Mateo went very still. What? I'm sorry. For not trusting you. For running. For... Her throat closed. For being exactly as weak as everyone thinks I am. You're not weak, Mateo's voice softened. You're terrified. There's a difference. And you have every right to be. I dragged you into my world without asking if you wanted to be there. Put a target on your back because I was selfish enough to think I could protect you from all of it. He reached over, took her hand. But I can't. No matter how many men I have, no matter how much money I spend, Isabella will keep coming, and eventually she'll find a way to hurt you that I can't stop. So what are you saying? I'm saying you have a choice. Same choice I gave you 3 days ago. Mateo's thumb traced circles on her palm. Walk away. Right now. I'll give you money. New identity. A house somewhere Isabella will never find you. You can start over. Be someone else. Live a life that doesn't include any of this. Or you stay. And we end this. Together. His eyes met hers. But if you stay all the way. No more running. No more doubting. You trust me or you don't. Because I can't fight a war on 2 fronts. Not against Isabella and not against your fear. Elena stared at their joined hands, at the blood still drying on her wrists, at the man beside her who'd just killed people to get her back. She thought about the courthouse steps, about the rain, about the moment she'd decided to get in his car because she had nowhere else to go. She thought about Derek, about Lydia, about every person who'd looked at her like she was something disposable. And then she thought about Mateo, about the way he'd wrapped her bleeding hand, about the way he'd stood between her and Derek, about the way he'd looked when he saw her tied to that chair, like she mattered, like she was worth burning the world down for. I'm staying, Elena said. Mateo's expression didn't change, but his hand tightened around hers. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He smiled, small, real. That's the bravest thing I've ever heard anyone say. They drove for another hour, took them to a building Elena didn't recognize. Industrial, abandoned. The kind of place where bad things happen and no one called the police. Mateo's men secured the perimeter, set up lights, turned the empty warehouse into a temporary command center. Lydia was taken to a room in the back, locked inside. 2 guards posted outside the door. Elena wanted to check on her, but Mateo shook his head. Later, he said. First we plan. They gathered in what used to be an office. Maps spread across a table, photos, files, everything Mateo had collected on Isabella over the last 8 years. Elena looked at the evidence, at the trail of destruction Isabella had left behind her, the people she'd hurt, the lives she'd ruined. She's in the city, Mateo said. Has to be. She wouldn't run far after tonight, not when she knows I'll chase her. Where would she go? Elena asked. Somewhere public. Somewhere I can't touch her without witnesses. Mateo's finger traced a line on the map. Here, The Crown Hotel. Luxury suite. High security. Cameras everywhere. She'll lock herself inside and wait for me to make a move. So we don't go to her. Matteo looked up. What? We don't go to her, Elena repeated. We make her come to us. Give her something she wants more than safety. Like what? Elena thought about the basement, about Isabella's face when she talked about Matteo, about the rage underneath the smile. Revenge. She doesn't just want your money, she wants you to suffer, so we give her a target she can't resist. Meaning? Meaning me. Elena met his eyes. We let her think I'm vulnerable, alone, easy to grab, and when she comes for me, we take her down. Matteo finished the thought. His eyes gleamed. That's insane. You have a better idea? He didn't. They both knew it. Isabella was too careful, too smart. She'd stay holed up in that hotel forever if she had to. But if Elena was out there, exposed, a second chance at the prize Isabella had lost tonight, she'd come. You'll be bait, Matteo said slowly. I've been bait this whole time. Might as well use it. If something goes wrong, then you make sure nothing goes wrong. Elena's voice was steady. You said you wanted me to trust you, all the way. No more running. This is me trusting you, so prove I'm right. Matteo stared at her for a long time. Then he started giving orders. His men scattered, made calls, set up surveillance, planned every detail down to the second. 3 hours later, Elena stood outside a coffee shop 2 blocks from the Crown Hotel. It was early morning now, sun barely up, street mostly empty. She wore a baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses, civilian clothes, nothing that screamed protected. Matteo was inside the warehouse watching through a camera hidden in her jacket button. 6 of his men positioned around the block, 2 snipers on rooftops, everyone armed, everyone ready. Elena ordered coffee, sat at an outdoor table, waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Brave little thing, aren't you? Elena's heart kicked. She texted back. Where are you? Close. Walk north. Alone. If I see any of Matteo's men, you die right there on the street. Elena stood, started walking. Matteo's voice crackled in her ear through the tiny earpiece hidden under her hair. We've got you. Keep moving. She's watching from somewhere, but we can't get a clean visual yet. Elena walked, turned corners when the texts told her to, followed instructions like a puppet on strings. 3 blocks. 4. The neighborhood got rougher, fewer people, more shadows. Another text. The alley on your left. Elena stopped, looked at the alley. Dark, narrow, trash bins and broken glass. Every instinct screamed at her to run. She walked into the alley. Elena, wait! Matteo's voice cut out. Static. Then nothing. The earpiece was dead. Elena's breath came faster. She reached for her phone. It was gone. Picked from her pocket somehow without her noticing. Her jacket button, the camera, had been torn away. She was alone, blind, defenseless. A figure stepped out from behind a dumpster. Isabella. She held a gun. Pointed it directly at Elena's chest. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the camera? Isabella asked. Or the earpiece? Or Matteo's men following you like lost puppies? She stepped closer. I've been doing this longer than you've been alive, sweetheart, and I know my ex-husband. He can't help himself, always needs to be in control, always needs to have the advantage, which makes him predictable. Elena's hands were shaking. What do you want? I told you. I want him to suffer. Isabella's finger tightened on the trigger. And the best way to make him suffer is to take away the thing he just decided he can't live without. That's you, by the way. In case you hadn't figured it out. He'll kill you. Eventually, but right now, I'll settle for killing you. The gun rose, aimed at Elena's head. Isabella's finger moved to the trigger. Elena closed her eyes. The gunshot rang out, but Elena didn't feel anything. She opened her eyes. Isabella was on the ground, blood spreading from her shoulder. Her gun had fallen. She was screaming, cursing, trying to reach the weapon with her good hand. Matteo appeared at the mouth of the alley. His gun was raised, smoking. He walked forward slowly, carefully, like he was approaching a wounded animal. Did you really think, Matteo said quietly, that I'd let her walk in here without backup? He kicked Isabella's gun away, crouched beside her, pressed his boot against her wounded shoulder. Isabella screamed. The sound echoed off the alley walls. You took 8 years of my life, Matteo said, turned me into something I hate, made me afraid to trust anyone. And then Elena showed up and I thought, maybe I could try again. Maybe I could be the man I used to be. He pressed harder, more screaming. And you tried to take that from me. You tried to kill the only good thing I've had in almost a decade. So now I'm going to ask you a question. And if you lie, I will shoot you somewhere that hurts worse than your shoulder. He lifted his boot. Isabella gasped, clutched her wound. Blood poured between her fingers. Where's the money? Matteo asked. The money you stole, the accounts you emptied, the offshore transfers, where is it? I spent it, Isabella choked out. Liar. Matteo's gun pressed against her knee. Last chance. Cayman Islands. Account numbers in a safety deposit box. First National Bank. Box 347. Isabella was crying now. Real tears. Not the fake ones from earlier. Please. I'll give you everything. Just don't. Too late. Matteo stood, looked at his men. Take her to the warehouse. Medical attention first. Then we talk. If she cooperates, she lives. If she doesn't... He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't have to. 2 men grabbed Isabella, dragged her out of the alley. Her screams faded. The morning was quiet again. Matteo turned to Elena. You okay? Elena couldn't speak, could barely breathe. The adrenaline was crashing out of her system so fast she thought she might pass out. Matteo caught her, held her up, pressed her face against his chest while her body shook. You were supposed to be in the warehouse, Elena finally managed. I lied. Matteo's voice was soft against her hair. You think I'd watch you walk into that alley through a camera feed? Not a chance. I've been behind you the whole time, close enough to put a bullet in anyone who tried to hurt you. That's insane. That's love. The word hung in the air between them. Elena pulled back, looked up at him. What? Matteo's expression was open, honest, terrified. I'm in love with you, Elena. Have been since I wrapped your hand on those courthouse steps. And I know it's too fast. I know it doesn't make sense. I know you probably think I'm crazy, but I don't care anymore. Because life's too short and I've wasted too much time being afraid. So yes, I love you, and I'm done pretending I don't. Elena stared at him. At the man who'd just shot his ex-wife to save her life. At the man who'd tracked her across state lines and stormed a house full of armed men and stood in a dirty alley with blood on his hands and terror in his eyes. And she realized something. She loved him too. Not because he saved her, not because he made her feel safe, but because he saw her. Really saw her. Every broken piece, every scar, every moment of weakness and fear and doubt. And he looked at all of it and said, yes, this, her, all of it. I love you too, Elena whispered. Matteo kissed her. Right there in the alley with sirens starting in the distance and blood on the pavement, and the sun rising over a city that had tried to destroy them both. He kissed her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered, and for the first time in her life, Elena believed him. And for the first time in her life, Elena believed him. The kiss ended slowly. Matteo pulled back just enough to press his forehead against hers, his breath warm against her skin. The sirens were getting closer. 3 blocks away. Maybe 2. His men were already moving, disappearing into doorways and side streets like smoke clearing after a fire. We need to go, Matteo said quietly. Elena nodded. Her legs felt unsteady. He kept his arm around her waist as they walked out of the alley, moving quickly but not running. Running attracted attention. They looked like any other couple heading home after a long night. Just 2 people who happened to be covered in someone else's blood. The SUV was waiting around the corner. Different vehicle than before, different plates. Matteo's operation ran like a machine. Every piece replaceable, every detail accounted for. They climbed inside. The driver pulled away just as police cars screamed past in the opposite direction. Elena watched the city blur through tinted windows. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Matteo took them in his, pressed them between his palms like he was trying to transfer his steadiness into her bones. Isabella's going to talk, Elena said. She'll tell the police everything about you, about what happened. She won't. Matteo's voice was certain. Because the moment she does, I release 8 years of evidence to the FBI. Bank records, wire transfers, 3 murders she ordered, 2 kidnappings, enough to put her away for life. She knows that. She's known it since the day she ran. So this was always a stalemate. Until tonight. Now I have her location, her contacts, her money, everything she's built to stay hidden. He looked at Elena. And she has nothing except a bullet wound and the knowledge that if she ever comes near you again, I won't just shoot her shoulder. The threat hung in the air, cold, final. This wasn't the man who'd wrapped Elena's hand on the courthouse steps. This was the other Mateo, the one who'd survived 8 years of war, the one who'd built an empire on fear and violence, the one Elena had just chosen to love anyway. They drove to a different safe house, smaller than the estate, an apartment in a building Mateo owned under a shell company 3 layers deep, 24th floor, windows overlooking the river, clean, anonymous, safe. Mateo's men swept the apartment, checked every room, set up security. Then they left. Posted guards in the hallway and lobby but gave Mateo and Elena space. The door closed. Silence settled like dust after an explosion. Elena walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, stood under water hot enough to burn, watched blood and dirt and the last 3 days spiral down the drain. When she finally stepped out, wrapped in a towel, Mateo was sitting on the edge of the bed. He'd showered too, somewhere. His hair was wet. He wore clean clothes. But the exhaustion on his face was something soap couldn't wash away. "Isabella's stable," he said. "My doctor patched her up. She'll live." "What happens to her now?" "That depends on her. If she cooperates, gives me access to everything she took, I let her disappear. New name, new country, enough money to start over somewhere I'll never find her. And if she doesn't cooperate," Mateo's expression didn't change, "then she doesn't get that choice." Elena sat beside him on the bed. She should have been horrified, should have been questioning every decision that led her here. Instead, she felt something else. Relief. Gratitude. The cold satisfaction of knowing the woman who'd tried to kill her would never get the chance again. "Does that make me a bad person?" Elena asked. "That I'm glad you shot her? It makes you human." Mateo's hand found hers. "You think I wanted to become this? You think I woke up one day and decided violence was the answer? I tried the legal way. Tried trusting the system, tried believing that if I played by the rules, justice would find me." His jaw tightened. "Isabella stole $40 million, killed 3 of my men, nearly destroyed everything I'd built, and the police couldn't touch her because she'd covered her tracks too well. So I learned to cover mine better. Learned to be the thing she was afraid of, because that's how you survive in a world that doesn't protect the people it should." "Is that why you helped me? On the courthouse steps? Because you saw someone who needed protecting?" "I helped you because I saw myself." Mateo turned to face her fully, standing there in the rain with everything falling apart. No one coming to save you, nowhere left to run. I remembered what that felt like, and I thought, maybe this time. Maybe I could be the person who showed up, the person who said, "You're not alone." Elena's throat tightened. "I'm sorry I didn't trust you. When Lydia came to the motel, you had every reason not to trust me. We'd known each other for 2 days. I'd bought your ex-husband's debt, tracked your location, pulled you into a war you didn't ask for." He squeezed her hand. "But you came back anyway, even after everything. You chose to stay. That's not weakness, Elena. That's the bravest thing anyone's ever done for me." "I was terrified. I know. I could see it in your eyes when you walked into that alley. But you did it anyway, because you trusted me to keep you safe. And I will." His voice dropped. "For the rest of my life, if you'll let me." The word settled between them. Heavy, real. Elena thought about Derek, about 6 years of marriage that had felt like carrying weight up an endless hill, about coming home exhausted just to find him annoyed she was late, about shrinking herself smaller and smaller trying to fit into a space he'd never actually made for her. This wasn't that. Mateo wasn't asking her to shrink. He was asking her to grow, to stop apologizing for taking up space, to stop pretending she was fine when she wasn't, to stop carrying weight alone. "I don't know how to be with someone like you," Elena said quietly. "Someone who," she gestured vaguely, "someone who shoots people and runs criminal organizations and has enough money to buy silence. I'm not asking you to understand my world. I'm asking you to let me build a different one. With you. Something cleaner, safer, better than what I've been living. Mateo's thumb traced circles on her palm. I've spent 8 years doing terrible things to survive, but I don't want to just survive anymore. I want to live. Really live. The way I did before Isabella, before the betrayal, before I turned into this. You can't just stop being who you are. No. But I can choose what I become next. He stood, walked to the window, stared out at the city. I have enough money to never work again. Enough legitimate businesses to step away from the rest. I could walk away from all of it tomorrow if I wanted to. But you don't want to. I didn't. Past tense. He turned. Now I do. Because staying in this world means eventually you get hurt. And I can't. His voice cracked. I can't watch another person I love get destroyed because of choices I made. Elena stood, walked to him, took his face in her hands. Then we leave together, both of us. Start over somewhere new. You'd do that? I don't have anything left here. No job, no apartment, no marriage, no life that's waiting for me to come back. Elena smiled. Small. Sad. True. So, yes, I'll leave with you, build something new, figure out who we are when we're not running from our pasts. Mateo kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, like he was memorizing the feel of her. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. 3 months, he said. Give me 3 months to close everything down, transfer the legitimate businesses to people I trust, tie up the loose ends, make sure no one comes looking for us when we disappear. He rested his forehead against hers. And then we go. Anywhere you want. Italy, Spain, some small town where no one knows my name. We buy a house, plant a garden, live like normal people. Normal people don't plant gardens after shooting their ex-wives. Then we'll be interesting normal people. Elena laughed. It came out watery. Relief and exhaustion, and something that felt dangerously close to happiness. 3 months. Okay, I can do 3 months. What will you do until then? I don't know. Find a job, maybe. Something simple, something that doesn't involve blood or violence or men who track my location. You could work at one of my hospitals. Elena raised an eyebrow. Absolutely not. If we're doing this, if we're building something real, I need my own thing, something separate from you, something that's just mine. Mateo smiled, actually smiled. Not the careful, controlled expression he wore in public. A real smile that made him look younger, lighter, almost happy. You're already better at this than I am. At what? Having boundaries. Being your own person, not losing yourself in someone else. His hand cupped her cheek. Teach me, please, because I'm very bad at it. Deal. They spent the next 3 months exactly how Mateo promised. He dismantled his empire piece by piece, sold the restaurants to a former lieutenant who'd proven loyal, transferred the hospitals to a nonprofit board, quietly funneled money out of offshore accounts and into legitimate investments that couldn't be traced back to him. His men were paid off, relocated, given new jobs in new cities working for new bosses. The ones who'd been with him the longest, the ones who'd stormed Isabella's house and covered the Chicago alley, got enough money to retire. Isabella kept her word, gave Mateo access to everything she'd stolen, bank accounts, safe deposit boxes, a storage unit full of documents she'd kept as insurance. In return, Mateo kept his word too. He gave her a new identity, a passport, a wire transfer to an account in Portugal, and one final warning. If she ever set foot in North America again, the FBI would receive a very detailed file about her activities over the last 8 years. She disappeared. Mateo's contacts confirmed she'd landed in Lisbon, rented a small apartment, was living quietly under her new name. He deleted her contact information, erased the tracking software he'd used to monitor her movements, let her go completely. Do you think she'll stay gone? Elena asked one night as they packed boxes in the penthouse. I think she's smart enough to know this is her last chance, Mateo said. And if she's not, he didn't finish. Didn't need to. Elena found work at a public hospital on the south side. Not one of Mateo's. Not connected to him in any way. Just a regular emergency room that needed an experienced nurse and didn't ask too many questions about the 6-month gap in her resume. The work was brutal. 12-hour shifts, trauma cases, gunshot wounds and overdoses, and people dying despite everything she did to save them. But it felt right, real, like she was rebuilding herself one shift at a time. Derek called once. Elena almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "I heard you're leaving," Derek said. His voice sounded hollow, tired. "Where did you hear that?" "Lydia told me, before she left town." Elena had almost forgotten about Lydia. After Chicago, Mateo had offered her the same deal as Isabella. New name, clean slate, enough money to pay off her debts and start over somewhere else. Lydia had taken it. Last Elena heard, she was in Seattle, working at a casino, probably gambling again. Some people never learned. "Yeah," Elena said. "I'm leaving. With him." Not a question. "Yes." Derek was quiet for a long time. "I made a mistake. Leaving you for her. Throwing away what we had for—" He stopped. "I'm sorry, Elena. For everything. You deserved better." "I know. Do you love him?" Elena thought about Mateo, about the way he'd held her hand in the alley, about the way he'd shot his ex-wife to protect her, about the way he looked at her every morning like she was the reason the sun came up. "Yes," Elena said. "I do." "Then I hope he treats you right. I hope he gives you everything I couldn't." Derek's voice cracked. "Goodbye, Elena." "Goodbye." She hung up, deleted his number, felt nothing. No regret, no nostalgia, just the quiet satisfaction of a door closing that should have closed months ago. The week before they left, Mateo took Elena to Casanero one last time, the restaurant where everything had started, where Elena had walked in wearing a borrowed dress and diamonds in her ears and watched her ex-husband's wedding fall apart in real time. It was empty now, closed for the evening, just the two of them and a private table by the windows. Mateo had cooked dinner himself, something simple: pasta, wine, bread still warm from the oven. They ate slowly, talked about nothing important: the weather, the new apartment they'd rented in Florence, whether they should get a dog. After dinner, Mateo reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Elena's breath caught. "This isn't what you think," Mateo said quickly. "I mean, it is, but not yet. Not tonight." He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple gold band, no diamond, no elaborate setting, just clean, perfect gold. "I bought this the day after we met," Mateo said. "I know, insane. But I walked past a jewelry store and I saw it in the window, and I thought—" He stopped, swallowed. "I thought someday, if I was lucky, if I didn't screw this up, I'd give this to a woman who made me remember what it felt like to want something more than revenge." Elena's eyes burned. "I'm not asking you to marry me," Mateo continued. "Not yet. We've been through too much too fast. We both need time to figure out who we are without the chaos, without the violence, without all of it." He took her hand, slid the ring onto her right hand, not her left. "But someday, when we're ready, when we've built a life that's ours and not just survival, I'm going to ask you properly, and I want you to know, right now, tonight, before we leave everything behind, that you're it for me, the last woman I'll ever love, the only one I want." Elena couldn't speak, could barely breathe. She looked at the ring, at the man across the table, at the future stretching out in front of them like a road they'd paved together. "Someday?" she whispered. "Yes. Someday I'll say yes." They left 3 days later, flew first class to Rome, took a train to Florence, moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood full of students and artists and tourists who wouldn't recognize Matteo De Luca if he walked past them on the street. Elena enrolled in Italian classes. Matteo spent his days reading, cooking, walking through museums like a man rediscovering what it meant to be human. They were anonymous, ordinary, free. 6 months passed, then a year. Elena came home from her shift at the local hospital. She'd gotten a job in the emergency department, her credentials accepted with barely a question, and found Matteo on the balcony. He was staring out at the Tuscan sunset, red and gold light painting the sky. She walked up behind him, wrapped her arms around his waist, felt him relax into her touch. "Hard day?" she asked. Thoughtful day. He turned, took her hands, and she noticed immediately that he was holding something, a small velvet box. Different from the one a year ago, this one was even smaller. Elena Val, Matteo said softly. I've spent the last year learning how to be the man I want to be. Not the man I had to become. Not the monster Isabella made, just me. And every day I wake up next to you, I remember what it feels like to be whole. He opened the box. Inside was a second ring. This one did have a diamond. Small. Perfect. I'm asking now, properly, will you marry me? Elena looked at the ring, at the man holding it, at the life they'd built from ashes and violence and two people who'd been broken by the world and decided to fix each other. Yes, she said. Yes, yes, yes. Matteo slid the ring onto her left hand, right next to the gold band he'd given her a year ago. Then he kissed her. Slow and deep and full of promises he'd spend the rest of his life keeping. They married 3 months later in a small chapel hidden in the hills outside Florence. Just them. An Italian priest who barely spoke English. 2 witnesses pulled from the street. Elena wore a simple ivory dress. Matteo wore black. They said their vows in broken Italian and perfect English. Promised to love each other through whatever came next. Promised to be honest, to be kind, to never stop trying. When the priest pronounced them married, Elena felt something inside her shift. The last piece of her old life, the nurse who'd stood on courthouse steps in the rain, finally disappeared. In her place was someone new, someone stronger, someone who'd walked through fire and come out tempered instead of destroyed. They held the reception at a small restaurant in town, just the 2 of them again. Wine and pasta and bread. The same meal they'd shared at Casa Nero, but this time there was no violence waiting outside. No Isabella, no Derek, no past trying to drag them backward. Just forward. Together. 5 years later, Elena stood in the kitchen of the house they'd bought in the countryside. Stone walls, vineyard views, a garden where they grew tomatoes and basil and flowers whose names Elena was still learning. She was making coffee when she felt arms wrap around her from behind. "Good morning, Mrs. DeLuca," Matteo murmured against her neck. Elena smiled. She still wasn't used to the name, wasn't sure she'd ever be, but she loved the way it sounded when he said it. "Good morning." Their daughter appeared in the doorway. 4 years old, dark hair, black eyes, her father's face and her mother's stubborn determination. She held a picture she'd drawn, crayon flowers and stick figures. "Look," she said, "it's us." 3 figures holding hands. Matteo, Elena, and the little girl between them who'd been born 2 years after the wedding, who'd never known violence, never known fear, who only knew parents who loved each other and her with a fierceness that still surprised Elena sometimes. "It's beautiful," Elena said. She picked up her daughter, held her close, breathed in the smell of shampoo and innocence. Matteo wrapped his arms around both of them. They stood there in the kitchen, sunlight streaming through windows, coffee brewing, the quiet morning sounds of a life they'd built from ruins. "Do you ever miss it?" Elena asked quietly. "The power, the money, the control." Matteo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I miss who I thought I was, before Isabella, before the violence, before I learned how easy it is to become a monster." He kissed the top of their daughter's head. "But I don't miss what I became. And I'd burn every dollar, give up every ounce of power, live in a shack if it meant keeping this, keeping you, keeping her. This is all I ever wanted. I just forgot for a while." Elena understood, because she'd forgotten too. Forgotten what it felt like to be seen, to be valued, to wake up every morning next to someone who chose her. Not because she was convenient, not because she was useful, but because she was exactly who she was, and that was enough. That afternoon, they took their daughter to the village, bought gelato, walked through the market. No bodyguards, no guns, no looking over their shoulders. Just a family. Normal. Ordinary. Free. As they walked home in the golden evening light, their daughter between them holding both their hands, Elena thought about the courthouse steps, about the rain, about the moment she'd slipped and scattered her divorce papers across wet concrete, about the man who'd appeared out of nowhere and wrapped her bleeding hand and said the words that changed everything. Any man who betrayed you is a fool. She'd been so broken then, so convinced her life was over, that she'd never be anything except the woman Derek left, the nurse who worked too much, the failure. But standing here now, in Tuscany, with a husband who loved her and a daughter who would grow up knowing what real love looked like. Elena realized something. Her life hadn't ended on those courthouse steps. It had begun. Sometimes the most dangerous love stories are the ones that save you. Not from external threats, not from villains and violence and people trying to hurt you, but from yourself. From the voice that says you're not worth fighting for. From the fear that says you'll always be alone. From the exhaustion that says it's easier to give up than to keep trying. Matteo had saved Elena from that voice, and she'd saved him from the monster he thought he'd become. They'd saved each other, and in doing so, they'd built something neither of them had believed possible. A life. A real life. The kind people write stories about not because it was perfect, but because it was earned. That night, after their daughter was asleep, Elena and Matteo sat on their balcony under Tuscan stars, wine in hand, feet tangled together, the comfortable silence of two people who didn't need words to understand each other. "Do you think she'll ever find us?" Elena asked. Isabella, no. Matteo's answer was immediate, certain. She's smart enough to know I kept my word, but I also kept insurance. If she ever comes looking, if she ever threatens this, he gestured at their home, their life. She knows exactly what happens. And Derek, Lydia, all of them? Gone. Moved on. Living their own lives. Probably blaming each other for what happened. Probably never thinking about us at all. He squeezed Elena's hand. That's the thing about revenge. It only matters to the people seeking it. Everyone else just wants to survive. And we did more than survive. We did, Elena agreed. They sat in silence for a while longer. Then Matteo said quietly, "Thank you." For what? For getting in my car that day. For trusting me even when you had every reason not to. For staying when it would have been easier to run. For choosing me, every day, even when I don't deserve it. Elena turned to face him, took his scarred hands in hers, looked into the black eyes that had once terrified her, and now felt like home. "You did the same for me," she said. "You saw me at my lowest, broken, afraid, with nothing left to offer. And you looked at all of that and said yes, this, her, all of it." She brought his hands to her lips, kissed each knuckle. "So thank you, for saving me, for loving me, for showing me what it looks like when someone fights for you instead of against you." They kissed under starlight, two people who'd been destroyed by their pasts and rebuilt by each other. Two people who'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is trust someone, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be saved. Years later, decades later, when their daughter was grown and they were old and gray and still living in that same stone house in Tuscany, when Matteo's past was nothing but faded scars and distant memories, when Elena could barely remember what Derek's face looked like, they would sit on that same balcony and tell the story of how they met. And their grandchildren would listen with wide eyes and ask, "Was it really like that? Was it really that dangerous?" And Elena would smile. Take Matteo's hand. Feel the weight of all the years between that courthouse and this balcony, all the moments of fear and violence and uncertainty that had led them here. And she would say, "Yes, it was exactly like that. But the dangerous part wasn't the guns or the violence or the people trying to hurt us. The dangerous part was choosing to love someone when we were both too broken to believe we deserved it. That's the kind of danger that changes everything. That's the kind of danger worth surviving." And Matteo would squeeze her hand. Look at her with those same black eyes that had found her in the rain all those years ago. And he would add, "And the best part? We're still dangerous, every single day, because we still choose each other." That was their story, not a fairy tale, not perfect, not without scars or regrets or moments they wished they could take back. But theirs, built from courthouse steps and midnight conversations, and a single moment when two broken people decided that together they might be able to make something whole. And in the end, that's exactly what they did.